All right, continuing the story here of Rav Mordechai Gerari, who recently passed away from COVID. His story, his father's story, was a university student in Russia, mysteriously drowned, and how Rabbi was very close to his father. He drowned. His mother was pregnant when his father drowned. And the way all the details of that were described yesterday was extraordinary. And he says that I think I mentioned this, that the Rebbe, as a child, conducted correspondence with the Rogatchover and used the pseudonym of his father, which shows the closeness. Okay, there's a lot of detail about his personal life, which isn't so relevant. If you knew him, it is fascinating. But the Rebbe, when he says he was an orphan, basically, I mean, his mother remarried. He was, again, born after his father died. He was Rav Mordechai ben Rav Mordechai. So he says he didn't know this, only found out later. Then he learned in Brunois that the son of Rav Nissim Neman of the celebrated Mashpia told Mordechai Gerari that the Rebbe had sent letters to his father Rav Nissim the Mashpia to keep an eye over, look after this young bocher. He's a big Talmud Chacham, and he had smicha in Yeridei, Yod, Mikvois, Gittin, and so on. Okay, when I get to the story, as follows to Sukkot. So when I came out of Russia with my mother, this was the beginning of 1947, I came to Paris and I learned there in Brunois for some 10 years. I came to the Rebbe the first time, Tishrei, in 1959, Tafshin Yutes. The way it was in those days, that you only came after you asked and got explicit permission from the Rebbe to come. That was for many years. So the Rebbe wrote me back and said as follows: traveling here takes a lot of time that is expended, bizbuz, wasted. And then there's the expense, and then there's bittul Torah. In those days, the traveling. But it's all worth it that if after your whole being here, you go back a different person. And Rebbe wrote to me and said that to his deep disappointment, this is not the way it is he says here, by most or by many. But if I take upon myself that the coming to the Rebbe for Tishrei will bring the resultant, the positive result, then success in the journey, you should come. There's a lesson for all of us here too, right now, but maybe we'll talk about that by the Fabrengens. So he said, I came between Yom Kippur and Sukkot. The first time I approached the Rebbe personally was by benching Lulav. In those years, the Rebbe was present in the sukkah himself and would give each person to make a bracha on his Arba Minim. Not for now, but to tell you how the evolution of that, and for decades that wasn't present, the thousands would go by, there's a whole system. Towards about the last year that it was with us, he stayed there in the sukkah, and Shachas was 4 o'clock in the afternoon. No one realized what was happening. But that was the last sukkah that was with us, Tashin Beis. Many other things then, extraordinary. But back in 1959, the Rebbe himself would give it. So afterwards, the people told me, he said, the Rebbe didn't take his eyes off me. The moment that I approached, to the moment I kind of left, and it seemed that because of my father, not his own schus, but his father's schus, and that I looked like my father, perhaps, that the Rebbe was looking at me. The end of Yom Tov, Simchas Torah, that year, 1959, Tafshin Yutes, was the extraordinary moment when the Rebbe taught the Shamil. And we translate, it lives before my eyes, the vision. How the Rebbe said the Sikha, in his introduction to the Nigun, and told the story of Shamil, the whole mashal of the neshama coming down into the body. And then he taught the Nigun. We could see with our own eyes how the Rebbe was experiencing everything he was saying. The neshama's descent into the body, the neshama pines for connection. And he said everybody was in a state of tremendous yesodedus. There wasn't a dry eye. He says, I too was obviously caught up in this, swept away with the tremendous yesodedus. He says, and because I had prepared, the custom is when you see the Rebbe in Yechidus, the first time to say you say Shechiyonu. Now later in the years we didn't do that. We would say Shechiyonu first time we saw the Rebbe. But in those days it was closest, so it was in Yechidus. He said, and I was planning to say the Shechiyonu when my turn came for Yechidus, which would be probably the next day, the day after, within the big following Simchas Torah. But at the end, he said of this whole Shamil, and from great emotion, he must have said it aloud. At the end of the whole thing, Shechiyonu, Kimonu, Kiyonu, Lizmanazeh. His Shechiyonu, I guess, was not only the Etzem being by the Rebbe, but that he merited to be there at this extraordinary moment when the Rebbe taught the beautiful Nigun of Shamil. All right, have a wonderful day. Achone to tonight and the 7 days of Simcha, increasing Simcha, Zman Simchaseinu. Friends, and we'll see each other. I'm going to put in the WhatsApp the pratim, but I can tell you, although I'm limited tonight because of my son's birthday, Tzamach, so I'm going to be at home in the sukkah. We're bringing it home. But the Stam Levi will be there, and others will be there from 10 o'clock or so tonight and each night of Sukkot. Tonight I've asked Rabbi Shapiro to Spiro, for me, Adam Shapiro. Shapiro. To share with a few words of Torah, and each night someone will share a few words. Someone that is David Medina, and Be'ez Hashem to Fabreng in a way that causes nachas, and so on.